Well, this week we've been taking a look back at some of the stories and faces that shaped our station as we celebrate 70 years.
And tonight, Team 12's Jonathan McCall talks to two former anchors, learning how one moment they shared together on air helped pave the way for so many others.
This is Action News.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Stan Stovall.
You could call Stan Stovall an icon or even a legend.
And as one person said, he's the reason the position is called anchor.
And those are not words that I use lightly to describe myself, because I always tell people I'm just another tax-paying citizen like everybody else.
But the truth is, he's not like everyone else, paying a hefty price to pave a path that he often walked alone for a number of years.
And believe me, I took my share of, how shall I say, people who it was difficult for them to accept a blackface on TV.
A TV titan in his own right, Stovall recently wrapped up a nearly 52-year career in broadcasting that took him from the jungles of Burma to the charm of Baltimore. But the pages of his story started right here in the Valley, where he grew up. But get this, TV wasn't even on his radar.
You never saw African Americans on TV. For that matter, very rarely, you never saw women, you never saw Hispanics, you never saw Asians. It was a segregated industry limited to just white males.
But that all changed with the passing of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Stations forced to make their newsrooms reflect the communities they served. For Stovall, it was an unexpected opportunity. In 1970, at the age of 17, while attending Carl Hayden High, another Phoenix station would make him the first black TV reporter in Arizona history. A year later, he would become the first black anchor in the state and the youngest in all of America.
That was very important to me to be a positive role model and a good representative for our people breaking that glass ceiling, because for so many years prior to that, we just weren't given the opportunity.
But being the first came with its challenges, including racism, in and out of the newsroom.
And this is in the day before the internet and cell phones and whatever, so they would literally write you hate letters. Write the station hate letters. What is this N doing on the air? And
in 1974, he found his way to Channel 12 after a pay dispute at his former station, where he says his white counterparts made more but did less.
2 days after that, Channel 12 called me and offered me a job as a weekend anchor and a reporter, paying me 3 times what I was making at Channel 3 at the time.
The move would put him in good company.
That I am the first black full-time sportscaster in the history of Arizona television.
Ron Brooks joined 12 News back in 1971, working first behind the scenes as a film editor, but quickly rising through the ranks as a news reporter and then as the weekend sports anchor.
As weekend sports anchor, could not get back in time to anchor the sports on the weekend news. So they pulled me out of the film editing room, put a shirt and a tie and a coat on me, and somebody helped me write a script. And I got in front of the camera and did it live, and I stayed on ever since.
The duo would make unexpected history right here on Channel 12.
I'm soloing the weekend, and we get into a commercial break, and as we're in the commercial break about to come out to sports, we come out on the monitor. The monitor is right in front of us, and Ron and I are both looking at the monitor, and we were just absolutely mesmerized because we had never seen 2 African Americans on a news set together at the same time ever.
And we both just sat there and stared at the screen in the studio, and I said, yes, it sure is. Well, what's happening in sports? I went on and did the sportscast. So it only happened once or twice. So it wasn't a regular thing. But it's never happened again. That's what makes it unique.
A moment they both shared together, triggering a bond that's lasted decades.
And we've developed a real bond. And it's good to know that there's somebody else who walked the same walk that I walked and went through the same trials. I mean, it wasn't easy getting on the air.
This legendary duo now hoping to have their stories cemented in the history of Arizona broadcasting, and that future generations can understand the path they paved.
That doesn't allow me to go to Baltimore. That doesn't allow me to walk into this station and to, assume the role that he had some 40 years ago as the weekend anchor. That's not possible without him or without you. So, and I personally want to thank you
You can tell how proud they are to be part of this history.
I'll say this, talking with Stan, it really was surreal knowing the fact that 40 years ago, he did sit in that same seat on the weekends. And for me to occupy it now and to just talk with him about growing up here and what his legacy has been over the years in Baltimore, it really was just an incredible interview that I definitely won't forget anytime soon.
And it's interesting because you guys have followed each other around the country.
Yeah, I worked in Baltimore at a
Right.
competing station, so I watched Stan. Remember watching him across, as a competitor, but just thinking how awe I was in that voice. He just had such an incredible voice and was always community oriented and basically the dean of Baltimore News when he left. So it was great to be able to connect with him and have that history here in Arizona and learning about him as well.
And very cool that they named the studio at WBAL
That
in
is very
Baltimore
true.
after him.
Yeah, he is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of news anchors there in Charm City.
Now, what are they up to today? Are they both retired?
So everyone's retired.
Okay.
Ron's up in Prescott, probably watching right now.
I hope
we
so.
would hope
He's
so.
watching right now. Stan's in Baltimore, but he still comes back to Phoenix often. He still has a number of family members here who still live here in Phoenix. So he still comes here to visit, and he watches us when he does.
Yeah.
Two fine gentlemen.
Yeah, they really
It's
are
great to hear
incredible.
from them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great
All right.
story. Really good story.